work of the any diversity or equity advisory committee. The Diversity Equity Advisory Committee would have its own set of driving mission, vision, value, which would articulate an end game. And so when you decide how that should be seated, because I presented two different scenarios, to have an advisory board operate in the capacity that they would report to the superintendent, and having an advisory committee that would operate and report to the board. Now, someone reporting to the superintendent would be driven by very different work than you guys are, 30,000 foot view. You're talking about all of the district in a way that is, kind of different than the nuts and bolts that the superintendent would function. So that person reporting to Mr. Francois would talk about workforce diversity. They would talk about planning and process. They would talk about a whole lot of stuff that would be kind of operational nuts and bolts. And you guys are thinking about, kind of bigger, higher, processes and structures overall in the work, and that would determine what he drives. But you're more connected with community. So if this board or this advisory group is reporting to you, I always am very deliberate to caution that they would report to you in an advisory capacity, so they would not drive the work that you do or the decisions that you make. I also had advised that it be a board that is reflective or representative of all of the enterprise, meaning all of the district. So that would be all of the communities that come together to report or support. For example, if I were going to put this in front of you, I would say don't have something very big and not manageable. I would probably suggest anywhere from 10 to 16 or 18 people, but you already have some constituent bodies that should be present. I think that there should be a PTSA presence that would represent the interests of all of the district. I think that there should be, if there is a Latino family group that exists, they should probably be reflective or a representative body in that group. There should be representation from different parts of the district, from different municipalities. If you are regional, there should be there should be a student that's part of that body. And my suggestion or recommendation would be that it was somebody that is a student leader within their own school, and it should also be someone that's probably 11th or 12th grade, so that they would have the capacity to understand the implication of the conversations and the work that comes out of that. I would suggest, diversity, many different elements of diversity. So it's not just black and brown people, it's all of those elements that Janet talked about that represent segments of diversity. And it would be community members, business leaders, civic leaders, and many others, because all of them are stakeholders that have a stake at the end result or end game of all of the work that we're talking about, whether they have kids in the district or not. So you have a very broad community appeal. But also important, we can put all of these processes and structures and systems in place, but we have to lean heavily on school communities and the community at large, because you all can put systems and processes in place, but one of the things that I mentioned the other day was the fact that as a matter of rule of law across the United States and across Washington State, technically as a matter of rule of law, racial discrimination doesn't exist. Technically, as a matter of rule of law, there is no disparity in income, there is no discrimination in any corner of this country. But when you walk outside of the door, does it in fact exist? And it does. And so you ask the question, well, how can it exist if a matter of policy and process and rule of law, we've said that we've created systems and structures that it doesn't exist. And then, then you have to push it out to the people, because we can't legislate how students are raised and what they feel and what's important to families. And so you're talking about this issue about equity and justice and bullying, but you have how many students in the school district?
20,600.
20,600. Well, you don't have 20,600 families sitting in here. All of them are impacted by it, but if everybody doesn't buy in that this is an issue that's important to them, or that it touches them or impacts their family, I know that people juggle what's important and what they have to get done right now, but I will guarantee you that if a shooting, God forbid, happens in one of your schools, in one of our schools, in New York, because this is a conversation of we all. But if we were talking about a memorial, or we were ordered to lower the flags and have staff, then this room would be packed with some of the 20,600 families that are represented with the district. So our goal is to get them and to be out in front of issues like this, because we don't want to be McKinney, Texas, and we don't want to be Baltimore, we don't want to be these places. So that'll require that we engage with many community stakeholders, and it's hard to have conversations and to understand who you put at the table, and then you have to consider form and structure. So once you get these folks, how long are they there? What kind of terms do they serve? My suggestion or recommendation is that they stagger, that you have some folks that are willing to come in for a year and some folks will come in knowing that they'd be in there for 2, and that half would go out and the other half would stay, and that would alternate and we'd have an alternating flow of folks coming and going, so that you can continue the work from year to year with some continuity and to have some institutional knowledge shift and move with this body. So, but you always have to think, what is the end game? What are we here for? What are we doing? Because you don't want to build it around a circumstance or some situation, because situationally we can deal with what happened at Timbercrest, and situationally those middle school families or parents that are, involved in that, their kids are going to go to high school and their kids will graduate and leave. And we don't want for that body that we hope to institutionalize and to create something that will be there after all of us are gone. We want for it to grow, move, and be fluid, and we want it to be part of the structure and foundation of the district and the work of the district, because it's important, so it's always there, but it will move and change and grow with the changing needs of the community. So whatever we create today may or may not look the same 5 years from now or 10 years from now, but we don't want to build it around dealing with one situation or handful of situations, because once we are done dealing with those, we don't want for people to sit around and say, well, what do we do now? Or what are we here for? What's the purpose again? So we want them to be purpose-driven, and it should be deliberate, and it should be intentional, so that we think from the 30,000-foot view, because the work that comes with that body impacts all of the students, and all of the families, and all of the communities, and all of the stakeholders. We want to create capacity so that we can deal with inequity and justice and access for all students, no matter their race, sexual orientation and identity, and ability or disability, or cognitive or mental or social, emotional, whatever, our otherness. I hope that gives clarity.
So that was fun. So just for a little further clarity, I'm hearing from the plan discussion about focus groups.
Yeah.
And I'm a little unclear about the group that you're talking about and the focus groups and how those work together.
Well, the focus group will help articulate what that advisory or equity group should look like. Because, one of the, if you had that advisory or equity group that reported to the superintendent, I guarantee you with 99.9% certainty that at some point they would say, you know what, we're not empowered in the way that I feel like we could be or should be. Let's suggest to him that we have a diversity office, somebody that's paid staff that's here all the time, full time, that's monitoring this stuff, someone that's professionalized. And what we've suggested that you have for reporting purposes for the board is for you to be able to work with community stakeholders, and all of them won't come to the table and be experts, so they won't be able to guide the work as subject matter experts, but they can give you the voice of the community. Because one of the things that I know people will criticize and say is that, well, look at the composition of the board. You have, I don't know that you would self-identify as Caucasian women. You could nod.
Italian, Mediterranean.
But people will look and they will say,
I would not.
people will look and they will say, that's not the most diverse, reflective body of even the current student population or staff population or whatever. And people will want to have a voice, but you're elected positions. And, barring someone stepping forward to run and running and winning and being seated there, we can't control the demographic makeup. Now, that's not to say that you aren't diverse, because all of you have a unique set of characteristics, experience, and skill set that you bring to the table, even in our conversation today. But, the way that you have some of that diversity on the board, absent that, is to have something like an advisory, an equity advisory panel or group so that you hear from the community from, different corners and different dimensions of difference and having different perspectives. And so you're able to get that so that the community feels like they have, a voice in that group. They're able to apply and compete, but even in deciding, what the process, because, we can't put it in place now because we have to decide, well, what does the process look like? How do you apply it? How do you apply it? How are people selected and who selects it? So there has to be conversation about what that looks like, because my recommendation has been that you don't want to just say you, and you get to participate, because I will guarantee you that, generally the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but you'll have principals and other PTA folks and other schools and people in the community say, wait a minute, hold on. This is important for us too, and how come we don't get to participate? Nobody told us that we had a chance to be in this group, and so we want to make sure that we have, a robust strategy and we communicate with all the community, and that we look at, and this focus group will help us determine in meeting the community where they are, will give us some ideas of what that should look like. Recommend to us so that you can consider, what we should put into place so that people can participate and be selected and what that will look like. So the focus groups will tell you from the community, this is what we're hoping that you'll do, and this is what would be fair, that we feel like, we had a say in, what you're ultimately choosing to do.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that. I think I just want to say, what I'm hearing is focus groups are formed, and I would say then that I would be in favor of that happening at every school to get broad input, and from those focus groups, the creation of the equity diversity group would form. I think that makes it clear for me.
Not every school.
I would be in favor of every school having one.
The focus groups are community members, they're not just the people at the, is that?
Now, I thought that was part of the discussion.
Now, you could have them at every school, but you could, engage with more than just this. You could, when you having it at the school, if it's in the evening or at a time that's, accessible to the community, you can invite people within, that zip code or within that school pattern or area, so that if people live around that school, because they're still part of that school's community. So, you could decide what that looks like, or you can engage with the YMCA. You can engage with whoever your community partners are.
So I believe that was work that you're conducting, and that was one of the questions, was every school or areas or what that should look like.
Yeah, I want to look at what the folks from Education Northwest recommend, and they said they will send us a proposal with what they would recommend, and that would be how many focus groups and representing what stakeholder groups within the community, and then we can discuss based on a number of factors, budget, capacity, whatever, if we want to add or subtract to that. And if we said go smaller, I'm sure they would say, well, these in our opinion would be the key groups that you must hear from. Mm-hmm. Or if we go larger, they would say, well, if you're going to expand, these are the groups I would recommend expanding to.
I appreciate that. I'm understanding it better. And the focus groups would also potentially drive the creation of the vision statement that we don't currently have for the district as well.
I want to explore that with them if there's a way to capitalize on. So they'll do qualitative research. So from these focus groups, they'll extract themes, they'll extract major concepts, major ideas, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges, and my question to them will be, is there a way that they can envision us utilizing those things not only to move our equity and diversity work forward or to help guide the formation of an equity council, but can we use it in a broader way to develop mission, vision, and values for the system? And they may say, it's not really appropriate for that, or they may say, yes, but you'd have some pieces that would be missing that you'd need to fill in.
Okay, I'm much clearer on what the conversation is about. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. I will say that we're not content area experts, and Larry has been in contact with a number that are, and what I'm hearing from the board is our strong desire to move forward on this in a thoughtful and really consistent way. And I'm just gonna recommend that we voice that and turn it over to Larry to meet with the content experts and then figure out, I mean, I don't think we have to decide tonight whether we're gonna do equity council first or what we're gonna do, because he has access to the content area experts that can help guide that work with the full understanding that we want the work to move forward.
And that, just to re-clarify, that will be part of some of those meetings as it relates to
The policy
policy or
decisions and-
even some of these that are bigger areas that could potentially affect policy. Because it might not all be exactly policy, but there's components that might, I don't think that we knew that Shannon, that it was going to, when I first asked Larry, can I be a part of this, when I told him I would like to be a part of this meeting, I don't think that we were originally thinking that it would be a policy level meeting, but it ended up being part of that. And so some of these other conversations might be that also. And I think that way we're voices for the community. It helps us to be informed. And the threat assessment information that we have right now, Larry, you're going to get that to us to let us know what is our current.
You'll have it, you'll see it in this Friday's briefing.
This Friday's briefing. And I just want to make sure I don't have anything else in that. And we'll have this at our next meeting again.
What I took away is that we want to have the board formally endorse the action plan, so it minus a lot of the operational detail, but at least the three major focus areas. So I'll have to figure out what to call them, and then the associated strategies under each of those focus areas, and we'll bring those as an action item to the June 23rd board meeting.
See board members looking at your notes. Anything further on this?
The only other thing I think I would like is the people that have been involved. I don't know some of the names. If we could just get like in our board briefing what their background is. And so you mentioned the Lois. Did you mention Lois? There was a woman you mentioned today.
Yes, her information and background is contained in the memo. So you'll get an update of the memo on Friday, it will be in there.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we could get that like at the top or a separate sheet, who everybody is, so it's easier to like.
Know who you're talking about?
Yeah, know who we're talking about and what their background is. I know we're talking to a lot of different people, and the board's going to be, Janet and I are going to be meeting with someone. And so it might be nice
She's
to
in
have.
the parent and community outreach for her.
And I know people will be asking us who are these people, so I'd like to be able to give them that information.
And just in consideration of the requests, the specific requests that were made, I saw embedded within the memo that Larry gave us, that we would be examining what we can learn from the incident at Timbercrest and what our processes are and what they need to be. So that seems to address that one. And then I don't know that there's the request was to fully implement it by September 2nd. I would love to let it run a natural course, and knowing that this is important to all of us.
I think a lot of aspects can be implemented before.
I think a
lot of it.
Sometimes when things run their natural course, they
Well, no,
They
like I
don't
think
get
the
done.
threat assessment, it sounds like it's moving along a lot faster. But
Yeah.
the work that Shannon was referring to, I think that does take a lot longer.
I think
A lot of things.
obviously it's important to all of us that
Yeah.
there's interest in seeing it proceed. So.
I think it's good to have a timeline though, because then if we say, just like we said with the later start, by this date, and if we have a timeline, if we have to move that timeline because certain things came up, I would rather have, hey, these are the things we're looking to have implemented. You kind of did that, Larry, on some of this, the focus groups by the beginning of the year, and Wood stated some of that, so maybe we even have a little time.
I think the September 2nd date is driven by community not wanting to send their children to school and receive racist death threats. So I think that I understand the September 2nd date, and I think that we're moving along. I'm not sure we have to put that firm date on it, but I certainly think that the overarching thought is our community wants to feel safe sending their children back to school in the fall. And I think they need to see progress on the action plans.
That's a good point. All right, well, thank you all for your thoughts. Thank you again to the community for your engagement. Next item on the agenda is future agenda items.